सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। कृष्णं नारायणं वन्दे कृष्णं वन्दे व्रजप्रियं कृष्णं द्वैपायनं वन्दे कृष्णं वन्दे पृथासुतं सच्चिदानन्दरूपाय विश्वोत्पत्यादिहेतवे तापत्रयविनाशाय श्रीकृष्णाय वयं नुमः। जन्माद्यस्य यतोऽन्वयादितरतः चार्थेष्वभिज्ञस्वराट् तेने ब्रह्महृदाय आदिकवये मुह्यन्ति यत्सूरयः। तेजो वारिमृदां यथा विनिमयः यत्र त्रिसर्गो मृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकं सत्यं परं धीमहि। धर्मप्रोज्झितकैतवोऽत्र परमः निर्मत्सराणां सतां वेद्यं वास्तवमत्र वस्तु शिवदं तापत्रयोन्मूलनम्। श्रीमद्भागवते महामुनिकृते किं वा परैरीश्वरः सद्यो हृद्यवरुध्यतेऽत्र कृतिभिः शुश्रूषुभिस्तत्क्षणात्। निगमकल्पतरोर्गलितं फलं शुकमुखादमृतद्रवसंयुतं पिबत भागवतं रसमालयम्। मुहुरहो रसिका भुवि भावुकाः मुहुरहो रसिका भुवि भावुकाः। Narad Bhagavan thought that he had inspired Vyas Bhagavan enough with his story. Usually the Mahatmas are not very keen in trying to say mostly about themselves. So he thought this much is sufficient. And Vyasa Bhagavan was like, just like how we all felt yesterday, that this is like a climax. What happened after that? Please continue and tell us more about your story. And we don't get to hear about you. We get to hear about what you do, but not about you. And to hear it directly from you is the rarest of the rare blessings. So please go ahead and tell us the conclusion of your life as to how you reached to this stage. So after the Akashavani gave that message, he observed the sadhana that was given. If we are wondering as to what was the sadhana was very simple and straightforward. Sometimes when the sadhana or the process is very simple, we don't take it seriously. And what was the sadhana that was given? That chitta shuddhi should be attained. And what is the criteria to understand that chitta shuddhi has been attained? One should know the criteria, right? my mind is pure most of the times. That does not cut it. That does not bring the exact effect that is required. So what is the criteria to understand that there is enough chitta shuddhi that has happened? Chitta shuddhi's final culmination is when the buddhi does not look at itself as this body that we are caged in. Dehatma tadatmya has to be completely weakened. At the most focused upon giving it food sometimes. But the rest of the time, like when we see the rest of the Mahatmas, rest of the devotees, to a point wherein even eating and sleeping is seen as a disturbance in sadhana. Uma Devi, when she was doing tapas, do you know why she is called Uma? When you look at the Sanskritam dictionary or the etymological derivations, vyutpatyartha, it's the strangest name. She used to so vigorously do her tapas that her mother, Menaka Devi, used to get angry at her severity of tapas. So she would say, Ma. See, whenever you get angry with your kid and you have to indicate it with a syllable, means what? Don't. Right? Ma definitely means don't. So she used to say that so often to Parvati Devi that her nickname became Uma. And what was her severity of tapas? She went to a point wherein even she used to eat one leaf in 15 days. And even that she gave up, therefore her name is Aparna. Parna, leaf. That used to sustain her. But then she gave up eating that also. Why? Disturbance. That is the kind of attitude towards the body wherein I am this body is not considered anymore as important. In today's world wherein when you step out into a mall, 6 floors, 8 floors, 10 floors mall, every single shop caters to how to feed the idea of being this body. Dehadadatmya abhivruddhyartam. That is how we, either it is the clothes, either it is a shop where you have nail polish, right next to it nail polish remover, foundation remover. There's like eatables, and then next to it is digestives to digest that which we eat. Every single outlet there is nothing but about the body, how to sustain the body as the body. There's absolutely no tapas that happens in that format. So he says, there came a point wherein even getting up and moving out to search for some berries or fruits was not necessary. I was lost in this complete thorough meditation of that Bhagavan which I was taught. The nama sankirtan, nama parayana, the japa was happening consistently. Just like the leaf in the fall season falls away from the tree, the body also one day quickly fell. right around the time where the last kalpa, where Naradji was, had come to an end. And at that point, when Bhagwan was doing the uchvasa, was breathing in, by his grace I entered into him. And in the next cycle, when this creation was to be created, I was one of the first ones born right after the Manasa Putras, the Sanat Kumaras were born. Just as Bhagavan had promised that I would be one of his Parshada, his ambassadors to represent him in all the lokas. That knowledge which my father, which my Pita Brahmaji got from Bhagavan Narayana himself during his tapas, he gave that knowledge to my 4 older brothers and me, and it was such a nectarine Bhagavat Dharma that was given that I was soaked in it, and I straight away went to Vaikuntha to see Bhagavan, whom I had not the opportunity to see in the last life. And Bhagavan welcomed me as though I belonged to that place. That is how since then I have been the Chiranjeeva that has been floating around all these 14 lokas, carrying the message of Bhagavan as his primary ambassador. Bhagavan Vishnu's brand ambassador is Narada. That he goes through all these lokas, spreading that knowledge, wisdom and devotion. So his final advice to Vyasa Maharaj was, you have done enough tapas. You have come to a point where nothing of this material world ever will obstruct you or hinder you. You have reached to that personal state of oneness of your own true nature. But since you have been focusing only on the dharma rahasya for the sake of the people, there is that asantrupti. Withdraw that mind which will very casually happen for you, and focus it on that Bhagavan, and let that Bhagavan reveal himself as this Bhagavat Shastra. And that is how we find that Bhagavan Vedavyasji finally sat down on the Saraswati Nadi Tira and wrote down this beautiful Bhagavat Dharma. Then in the next chapter, Shaunakadi Rishis say, he getting it we understand. But what was the necessity of that Vairagya Murti Shukacharya, that who stepped out of the mother's womb, saw Bhagavan's feet, did namaskar to that and left to the forest? How and when did he learn this knowledge? So once he was meditating in that forest, and he had this urge, a very intense urge to listen to Bhagavan's glories. So the forest spoke to him and said, go to your father, do the Sushrusha of Bhagavata Shastra. So he came back searching his father and said, oh father, will you be my teacher to teach that divine, inspiring devotion to Bhagavan? May I be blessed with that Bhagavata Shastra. Thus, he was given this Bhagavata Shastra. Before the students could ask another question, sometimes if the teacher allows the question answers, one person asking the question becomes contagious to the other person, then there is a continuation, there is no break. It will continue. So before anybody could think of another question to be asked, he said, let me switch gears and bring in the next topic to be discussed. So he says, Parikshitotha rajarshe janma karma vipalanam samstham cha panduputranam vakshe krishna kathodayam. Now let me quickly bring your attention to the listener who was as great as this Shukacharya, who is Parikshita. Now this Parikshita's life, to be understood, to be explained, he had to go several scenes before, several generations before. Parikshita was born to who? Abhimanyu and Uttara. Abhimanyu was the son of Arjuna. So Arjuna was his grandfather. So that part of the story is taken up. So it is said that in the very end of the Mahabharata Yuddha, when the Kauravas had almost lost everything, even Duryodhana was done with, there were only few people that were left behind. One of them was Ashwathama. The popular media these days presents Ravana as a great character, Ashwathama as a great character. There is a lot of confusion that occurs in the generation. What did Ashwathama do? He said, I will venge for all the Kauravas. These people have their strength when they are awake and on the battlefield. What will they do if they are asleep? So he went and assassinated, assuming that they were Pandavas. Each one of the Pandava had one son, Upapandava, through Draupadi Devi. They were also 5. They were in that Shibira, they were in that camp, sleeping at night. Ashwathama went and killed them, assassinated them. As soon as Arjuna comes to know, he turns to Bhagavan. He says, Krishna, Krishna Mahabhaho, Bhaktanam abhayankara, tvameko dahyamananam abhavargosi samsrute. Hey Bhagavan, what do I do at this juncture? He said, you will have to find that Ashwathama and bring him to justice. He has done unthinkable. If he was really Veera Shura, if he really knew what was the warfare about, he would have challenged them or you all on the battlefield. But for somebody to come and kill the people that were sleeping, wherein we say that even to wake somebody up while sleeping is not considered as a punya karma, he has killed them, he should not be spared. So Ashwathama ran pillar to post, because Bhagavan himself was the charioteer and the Pandavas were following Bhagavan Krishna. Wherever he would hide, they would identify and he would, in the nick of the moment, escape. It is like he reached his last resort. And it was in a very small hut that he went and hid himself, thinking that it was well hidden. A hut, jo zara hut ke tha. So he thought that it was hidden. But he was soon surrounded by the Pandavas. And at that point, fear-stricken Ashwathama, recounting all the things that he had done, still vengeful in his thought, word and deed, took a straw from the hut that he was in, invoked Brahmastra in it. See, today, if somebody had to fire a missile, if it is a ballistic missile or a Scud missile or a BrahMos missile, you have to have a big van, big vehicle to carry it, take it to the frontiers, and then feed the coordinates, then launch them. After they get launched, they have to be refed. What is the beauty of these Astra Shastra? First of all, what is an Astra and Shastra? Astra is that which is launched. Shastra is that which is held in the hand and fought with. Therefore, all the arrows were called Astra, Pashupata-astra, Brahma-astra, Agni-astra, Shakti-astra. For you to remember, if in an angry mother's hand there is a balun, is it an Astra or Shastra? Astra if the target is close by, Shastra if the target is close by, Astra if the target is far. Now you will remember. Astra and Shastra. So he invoked that Brahmastra into it and then launched it. Look at this fellow's cruelty. His thought was, though I have not been able to accomplish what I had taken sankalpa for, is to annihilate these Pandavas, unknowingly I have annihilated their santana. Their next generation, Pandava's next generation, the hope was in Uttara's womb. If I annihilate that womb, Santana Vihinaha Rajaha, the Raja who does not have Santana is as much as lost. So he aimed this Brahmastra to Uttara's womb. Bhagavan Krishna, the all-knowing one, he was standing right there, and as right in front of his eyes that Astra started raising up, going towards, he very clearly knew where that Astra was going. So he immediately told Arjuna, he said, Vedhedam dronaputrasya brahmamastram pradarshitam naivasau veda samharam pranavadha upastite. This Brahmastra which has been shot by Ashwathama, Dronaputra, it is definitely aimed at Pranabadha, to remove somebody's life. But the sad part is, he knows how to launch it, he does not know how to withdraw it. Na eva asau veda samharam. To withdraw it, he does not have a clue. He does not have an idea. So, hey Arjuna, launch your Brahmastra to tackle this Brahmastra, stopping it and then withdrawing both of them. So thus guided by Bhagavan Sri Krishna, Arjuna immediately launched. It almost felt, looking at the sky, it was so lit with fire that there was some kind of Prachandagni which is at the end of the Pralaya Kala, which would annihilate the creation itself. It looked that dangerous. So finally Arjuna's Astra, Brahmastra, tackles down or stops the Brahmastra of Ashwathama, and then with the Mantra Shakti, he withdraws both the Brahmastras back. As soon as this was withdrawn, that Ashwathama who was trying to run away sneakingly from the back door, quickly they go catch him up, tie him down. And Bhagavan Krishna, as though to test Arjuna, he says, "This is the fellow that has killed your children. Finish him off." Arjuna looked at Bhagavan and said, "That I may fail to do. All that I promised Draupadi Devi was that I will take this Ashwathama, the culprit, and present him to Draupadi. It is that mother who has lost 5 children. I'll leave it up to her." So they tied his hands and legs, threw him in the chariot like a pashu, and dragged him all the way back to Hastinapura and presented this Ashwathama to Draupadi Devi. That Draupadi Devi, known for her name, fame, and well thought existence. She was most qualified. In Mahabharata, there is a whole episode wherein she knows how much is the strength of the army. There was the 4 kinds of armed people. One was the foot soldiers, the second was the cavalry, then the third was those who were on the elephants, and the fourth one was those who were on the charioteers. Rathi, Sarathi, Rathi, Ardharathi, Maharathi were their qualifications. She exactly knew the count of every single animal, how many chariots, what were their resources, how many were to be repaired, how many were to be, and similarly she had how much taxes were collected, how much taxes had to be spent, where it is spent. She knew in and out the entire Samrajya's welfare on her fingertips. Not on a voice memo recorded somewhere that she had to find. Google it. It was on her fingertips. Such a Medhavi. She looked at this Ashwathama and then turned to Bhagavan, turned to Arjuna and said, "He is your Guru Putra, an extension of the Guru himself. Therefore, killing him is not advisable. So, hey Bhagavan, you advise, this fellow has to be punished. How should he be punished?" Then Bhagavan said, "He was born with this money and tejas. Arjuna, take away that money and that tejas, and I will curse him to live for eternity with this pain and paschatapa." See, if there is a punishment given, you also feel relieved. See, between the parents, there is one of them who doesn't get angry, who stays quiet, quieter than usual, only stares at you, knowing that you have done something wrong, doesn't scold you yet, and you feel like, you just scold and finish it, na? Unnecessary tension inside. Be done with it. Bhagavan Krishna said that this fellow's paschatapa should turn into tapas and then grow. So Ashwathama was thus relieved. To such Bhagavan Krishna, who protected the Pandavas, protected the Garbha of Uttara, Kunti Devi, the famous shloka, she praises him and says, Vipadas santuna shashvat tatra tatra jagadguro bhavato darshanam yatsyat apunarbhava darshanam. O Lord, hey Bhagavan, whenever there was vipatti that we had to go through, then you were there with us every step of the way. Because it gave us the opportunity to think of you. Because it gives me the opportunity to think of you incessantly, therefore I don't mind being in vipatti always. She repeats this same thing when Bhagavan Krishna at the end of the Mahabharata war asks everybody of a boon, and she says, keep me in vipatti. Why? That keeps me constantly thinking of you without forgetting you. She was not a sadist, she was not a masochist, inviting trouble on herself and being in pain. Her point was the mind, when it sees that it is in that kind of a situation where there is vipatti all around, it automatically switches to turn to Bhagavan. Therefore, vipatti is fine. If the mind is in pain and sorrow and it cannot turn towards Bhagavan, then I don't need such vipatti. Now, on the other hand, this is scene 1. The next chapter is scene 2. Now, look at it like a director. So, the scene closes here. And the scene suddenly opens wherein this Jagadashraya Bhagavan, Sri Krishna, is at the same time in Hastinapura also. He was with the Pandavas. At the same time, he is with in Hastinapura, where Uttara runs to him. When the Bana being left from Ashwathama, how Arjuna handled it, that part we have already seen. What happened on this side? So that is the next part of the story. Wherein Uttara runs to Bhagavan Krishna and prays to Bhagavan Krishna, falling at his feet. She says, Hey Bhagavan, there is this bhayankara teja and tapa that is enveloping me from all directions. I fear for the child that is growing in my womb. Even if my body perishes, I am okay with it, but please protect that child in the womb. Then Bhagavan Krishna with Sankalpa entered into Uttara's womb in his Chaturbhujakara Rupa, in this original Vishnu Rupa. And he was swinging his gada in all directions with such pace. Later in Parikshit's own language, he says, all that I saw was a circular disc around me held by a very glorious looking person who was revolving something like a bulge around me, and that was the most beautiful thing that I have ever seen. Thus, not just Uttara's Garbha, but also Uttara was protected by that Bhagavan on this end of the happening. How can Bhagavan be in both sides? Double action. Idhar bhi, udhar bhi. But in movies you very easily accept double action. But Bhagavan, the one who has created this world, he doesn't have the freedom to have double action. Now, once this part of the story is done, one day Yudhishthira starts seeing apashakuna all around him. See, whenever you are connected to someone, manasa, vacha, karmana, you are connected at more than just at a physical proximity. When you are connected to someone, and that too to Bhagavan, it happens, right? When your own child falls sick and is somewhere else, you feel a little uncomfortable, disturbed here. Immediately you call, Beta, how are you? Are you doing okay? It can be vyadhi or adhi that they are inflicted with. You come to know that, you come to realize that they are suffering, there is something happening, and there is unsettling feeling inside you. As a parent, I am sure you have gone through that. Connected to Bhagavan Śrīkṛṣṇa, Yudhishthira was feeling unsettled. Moreover, he was seeing apashakuna, bad omen, all across. So he sends for Arjuna to find why, what is happening. This whole creation around, it was looking like upside down suddenly. Then Arjuna, who was called by Bhagavan, he comes with the information. Comes with the information that Bhagavan Krishna has concluded his Leela. He has done the samapti of his Leela, and he gave the details to Yudhishthira. By this time, Parikshita was about a 8-9-year-old child. Yudhishthira sank down right there. Mustering up all the courage, he said, enough of this being in this world. Let us all do the prasthana, mahaprasthana. So they decided the date, they decided the time, they brought Parikshita, coronated him with all the possible aspects, and declared him the king next. So Yudhishthira knew about Parikshita and his future, because as soon as he was born in such special circumstances, protected by Bhagavan, with such place wherein the Upapandavas were killed, he was the only one now alive, that too being protected by Bhagavan. So he said, how is his future going to be? So he called the best of the person who could read the horoscope. Many people have this question in their mind. Are these even believable? Is horoscope and astrology, is it believable? Jyotishya is called a shastra. Shastra means a science. Look at it this way. We are talking of those rishis, those mahatmas who knew. See, ours is the only scripture which talks about earth being round, not flat. Rest of the literature of rest of the religions that you see, they mention it as flat. The study of this earth was is still called as Telugu? Who gold? What is that? Golakara. Gola means spherical in nature. I don't know if you have made an observation or not. On the Varahavatara, when the earth is being brought up, wherever there is a sculpture sculpted, how is that earth shown, depicted? Spherical in nature. All of you sitting, or most of you sitting, have gone through from your brahmacharya to grihasthashram after vivaha, right? Almost all of you. Especially in the southern part, in the Vedic ritual, after the marriage is done, the next day, way early in the morning, both the dampati are woken up and they are taken out into the dark and they are shown something. Do you know what they are shown? Arundhati nakshatra. Neither the priest knows the direction nor these people know the direction. They say namaskara to Arundhati nakshatra, namaskara, and then you walk back in, again sleep. Why? It is way early in the morning. Why is that Arundhati nakshatra so important that it gets mentioned in Bhagavan Krishna Rukmini Swayamvara? It gets mentioned, Arundhati nakshatra darshana, it gets mentioned in Ramji and Sitaji's wedding. Is such an ancient tradition. Why that was an important aspect? In our galaxy system, that is the only particle space object where there are two stars rotating. So what is big deal about it? Earth and Moon are also two planetary objects. Wherever there are two planetary objects at a very close proximity, we find that there is one which is revolving around the other, being stationary. One becomes the pradhana, the other becomes the upapradhana, the satellite. Gauna, not important. This Arundhati nakshatra is the twin star system wherein both stars are revolving around their own axis and around each other. The point that is being made is the married life is such that both of you are revolving around each other. It is not one revolving around the other. It is not one being the pradhana, the other being the upapradhana. Both of you are the center. It is not an equation of equality. It is an equation of oneness. There's a huge world of difference in understanding equality versus oneness. Two coming together to be one is being one unit. Dampati being one unit. It is not two with an equation of equality. I do the dishes, you do the drying. I bring the vegetable, you wash the vegetable, you cut the vegetable, I saute the vegetable. That is not. Whatever are your strengths, whatever are my strengths, we bring it together so that we run it in such an efficient manner that there is a seeming balance maintained throughout. That is what Arundhati nakshatra indicates. Whatever the indication and significance of it. Point to note, they knew the nakshatra, that there is this twin star system wherein far, far away that the naked eye cannot see it, they have seen and visualized to make that as a significance in our day-to-day life. All this introduction for what purpose? To understand astrology, that it is not a cock and bull story, that our rishis have made a thorough study of all the planetary motion and its impact on the individual who is born at a certain time, at a certain space. What does GPS stand for? Global Positioning System. In understanding the global positioning system, what are the parameters required? I can see the video, but the audio is not reaching me. There are two coordinates that are required: longitude and latitude. Precisely pinpointing where exactly we are. Based on that precision, the impact of these planets change. Is the Hindu calendar system Panchanga solar calendar or lunar calendar? Whether you take the lunar as pradhana or solar as pradhana, it doesn't matter. Panchanga is lunisolar. Day is decided by the solar system, Tithi is decided by the lunar system. Panchanga, Tithi, Vara, Nakshatra. So it is a lunisolar system. With that lunisolar system, precisely finding what time, what space that individual is born, to identify what are the effects of these different planetary objects on that individual. Swamiji, what are you talking? They are there, we are here, how can they be having an impact? One simple example. Ocean is made up of water. 70% of this earth, where is she? She is not here. 70% of earth is water. When do we have high tide? In a very rustic understanding, it depends on the moon's movement. When is the highest high tide? Paurnami is the highest high tide, because Paurnami, the entire moon is visible and that has an impact on the water mass. Right? Human body, how much percentage is water? It depends on the BMI, Swamiji, the body mass index. Approximately 70 to 78% is water. The same impact that this moon, I'm just taking one planetary object, the same impact that the moon has on the water masses on earth, would it not have the impact on the human body? That is why we see that whenever there is a full moon, there is heightened emotions in the individual. Whenever there is a new moon, there is a lower feeling of the mind. The study of it and the place where they take people that have been impacted psychologically is called a lunatic asylum. Luna means moon. Another wow moment. Luna means moon. Lunar. So when one planetary object can show this, the other planetary objects, See, in Sanskritam, when we say graha, it has a different definition than when we say a planet in English. That is not the true translation of it. Therefore, I am specifically using the word, avoiding using the word planet. I am saying planetary objects, generalizing it. The objects in the space. Of the many that have that kind of an impact, 9 of them have been found to have that impact. So those 9, their impact and the study based on the GPS, the positioning of that particular individual and the timing that they were born, to see how that impact is seen in that individual and their life based on that time and space. One part of the aspect of Jyotishya Shastra is that it is a pure mathematical science, calculations and formulas. The second aspect of it is, once you come down to the baseline of the entire calculation, when it is done, these calculations these days you don't even need to do it. You have enough apps wherein you feed these 2 parameters of the coordinates and time, it will do the calculation. But the tricky part comes after the calculation is done. It is called the interpretation. For the interpretation, you need somebody's mind who is intuitively uplifted. Definitely, certainly not business minded. What you find out there mostly is business oriented. Based on that, if you were to decide if it was a Shastra or not Shastra, then your evaluation is wrong. So that is about Jyotishya. So Yudhishthira brought the best of the Jyotishya in that particular time and got him to predict and look into future as to what would happen of Parikshita. So that Jyotishya said very clearly that he would be the best among the kings to be remembered. He will be like Bhagavan Rama himself. He will be like Bharata himself. Bharata, after whom it is named as Bharat Desha. So he gives all of this. So Yudhishthira is happy to hear that. Yudhishthira specifically asks, because most of the wise Jyotishya do not talk about the ill effects that the individual might have to go through. So he specifically asks, is there something not to be heard of in his life? So the Jyotishya says, yes, there is, but I don't see it as bad, but there is certainly one. At the prime of his ruling this kingdom, he will die because of the snake bite. But because of that curse, because of which he will go through that snake bite, he would have the greatest opportunity to be remembered through the scriptures as the greatest devotee. Knowing all this about Parikshita, Yudhishthira places him as the king to be. And what do these people do? They do the Mahaprasthana and they leave for Swargarohana. Their Swargarohana also goes through Kedarnath, Badrinath and reaches to Badrinath, crosses the Badrinath. Anybody gone to Badrinath? So when you have been to Badrinath, you cross Badrinath, there is the last village where there is a tea shop which says Bharat ka sabse aakhari chai dukan. That is in the village Mana, where you cross Ganesh Guha, Vyasa Guha. After you cross that, there is Saraswati Nadi, there is Bhimpul. There is a big boulder which was thrown by Bhima, assumed to be thrown by Bhima, to cross towards their Swargarohana. So Yudhishthira and Pandavas leave. Yudhishthira with his 4 brothers and his wife leave for that Swargarohana. Now, Parikshita on this side, even at that tender young age, he was known for his compassionate ruling of the kingdom. At that very young age, he had already accomplished the Ashwamedha 3 times to establish his kingdom and its stability. He was married to Uttarakumara's daughter. He was married to Iravati and he had 4 sons. One of the sons you all know. Which one? Janamejaya. Acha, Janamejaya was Parikshita's son. Janamejaya is Parikshita's son. See, we keep hearing these names, we probably don't make the connect. So Janamejaya was the oldest son. Then was Shrutasena, Bhimasena and Ugrasena. Those were the 4 children that were born to Iravati and Parikshita. As a king, Parikshita believed that with regards to the kingdom, as a king to say, "Oh, I didn't know that," is a very shameful thing. Supposing it is your house, and about your house you yourself did not know, it is a shameful thing, right? Say, you as a mother who works in the kitchen, if you did not know what is in the kitchen, so Parikshita felt that it was his bound duty to go far and wide across his entire kingdom every so often to make sure that everything is in balance. And if people had any kinds of questions, queries or complaints, he was accessible to them at every time. So one day when he was going through Kurujangala Pradesha, why? He had heard that through his spies that Kali had entered into his kingdom. After the war, 36 years, the Pandavas ruled. As soon as Bhagavan Shri Krishna finished his Leela, they also left for Swargarohana. Meaning, Kali Yuga had begun. It had started. And now it had entered into Parikshita's kingdom. And it was precisely around this area of Kurujangala Pradesha. So there, as he was, taking a ride on his horse, evaluating that place, he saw a very peculiar scene. There was this cow which was having a dialogue with a bull which was standing or trying to stand on one leg. And the astonishing thing was that this bull was inquiring of the welfare of the cow, saying the one-legged bull was dharma. In the Kali Yuga, it was only standing on satya. The rest of the three qualities were almost lost. Who was this cow? Bhudevi, who had taken the form of the cow, and to her this Dharma was asking, now that Bhagavan has left, do you feel lonely? How are you feeling? How are you, facing this challenge? Those were the glorious days as when Bhagavan was on this earth roaming. It's so nice of you to ask. Bhavan hi veda tat sarvam yanmam dharman apruchhasi. I have had the best time of my life as this Bhudevi when Bhagavan with his own feet was walking on this Dharatala. Those memories are sufficient. But what to talk of you, brother? You are now limping with only one foot. As they were discussing thus, there was a Shudra in the most Chandala form who came with a stick, started beating both of them, the bull and the cow. Parikshit was at a distance watching all of this. He was also shocked that these two were being beaten up by this Shudra. Parikshita came, I shouldn't say running, he came galloping because he was on a horse. The horse came running, and with one foot he made sure that fellow who was troubling these two was contained. And then he talks to these two, asking, who are you? Why are you being abused by this fellow? What have you done? So instead of answering Parikshita's questions, the bull starts asking about his kingdom, his ruling, and the balance of it. Then Parikshita, for a very brief time, leaves his foot from that Chandala, falls on the feet of this bull and said, you must be Dharma. Because the only one that can ask with such clarity about my responsibilities and execution either has to be a great Mahatma or Dharma himself. If you are Dharma, please bless me. Thus giving them both a little space from this person that was abusing, he immediately remembered that fellow was still under his foot, pulls out his khadga. Khadga, is it astra or shastra? Shastra. So he catches hold of this fellow's neck and is about to execute him, because that is the way the ones that abuse the cows have to be treated. Gomata ki jai. So this fellow immediately falls on Parikshita's feet, understanding that if he did not do the right measures, he will not be existent anymore. He falls on Parikshita's feet and asks him to forgive him. I take your refuge, O king. I have nowhere else to go. By this time, Parikshita understood that this is the fellow that he came out to search. He was the Kali Purusha. So as soon as he said, okay, you are that Kali for whom I came searching for, you should leave my kingdom immediately. So Kali turned around 360 degrees. He said, hey Parikshita, you have done 3 Ashwamedha. Show me a piece of land where you have not occupied, which is not under your rule. You asked me to leave your kingdom, there is not an iota of space where I can go to. So do not execute me or do not compel me to be ostracized. Don't make me this desha bahishkara. Give me few places where I can live in. Then Parikshita says, I'll give you these 4 places to live in. What are those 4 places? Wherever gambling of whatsoever order is being entertained, even if it is not for money. Kali, his first residence is places of gambling, pakata, dyutamu, kitty party, hint hint, adharmamu, dyutam. Madhyapanam. Madhyapana is alcohol, how much ever percent it is. See, when you eat grapes, it is healthy. You eat barley, it is also healthy. You eat peaches and apples and pineapples, it is healthy. You rot them and then drink it, it is called adharma. But Swamiji, how do you know all this? I have also studied science. Madhyapana. Then he says, that where there is an enforced environment, oppressive environment on women, let that point get across clearly. Oppressive environment on women is the highest productive place for Kali to play its adharma. Then the last one he says, wherever there is violence. Kali looked at it, only 4? Too small a place for me. Please give me few more places at least. Then Parikshita said, not few more, only 1 more. Dan tarvata no muyinor. Don't ask for more. What is that last place? Wherever there is lot of affinity towards gold and wealth. Wherever the wealth is adharmically amassed, aggrandized, hoarded upon, such is the place for Kali to do his Viplatandava. So Kali said, okay, I will adjust in these 5 places. In those times, these kinds of environments were away from the kingdom, away from the city, away from the villages. But these, we have now brought it into our houses. There is a place for wine cellar. There is a whole almirah decoratedly kept for liquor to be displayed. And what to talk of how the women are treated. Now, after Kali is been done, now the gears are switched. One day, Parikshita had gone out on hunting. He was out there. Whenever they would go out for hunting, they would go with a retinue of soldiers. There would be a group of them carrying tents, there would be a group of them carrying cooking materials, there would be a group of them for his protection. He was so fast on his horse that entire group went in one direction, he went in another direction. He got caught up in that forest so deep that he was now hungry, he was thirsty, and he could not even find a small lake, pond, so that he could quench his thirst. Have you ever had kids where there was a particular time of day when they would become cranky, uncontrollable? They look very irritated. That irritation, in other words, is also known as hangry. Half hungry, therefore half angry. You feed them, they become like angels. Otherwise, they are like mini tufan. Now, Parikshita was also famished, thirsty, parched, and in that moment, searching for some water, searching for some relief, he saw a sadhu sitting and meditating. This Rishi's name was Shamika Rishi. He stood there, demanded some water, but this Mahatma was deeply lost in samadhi. He did not even know his body, what to talk about somebody standing outside asking for water. Not seeing a response, Parikshita grew angry. There was a dead snake nearby. He pulled that with his arrow and wrapped it around this Rishi's neck. Achieving what? Nobody knows. Whenever the Madhya Pradesh is empty, Uttar Pradesh also becomes empty, becomes illogical. And went on his way. Finally, after many hours, found his troops and then got back to the palace. Scene ends there. The second part of the scene was this Shamika Rishi's young son, who was very recently given Yajñopavita Samskara, couple of years after his Yajñopavita Samskara. But such a great tapasvi that young Shrungi, that he saw that somebody had wrapped the snake around his father's neck, immediately pulled that snake, dead snake that too, pulled that dead carcass out of his neck, out of fit of anger, gave the Shapa curse that whoever did this to my father, 7 days from now will be killed by that great Takshaka. This unsettling environment of the outside woke this Shamika Rishi from his own deep meditation. Because of that large sense of negativity, he was drawn back from his samadhi. Then what is happening here? Then Shringi said the entire vrittanta, that somebody wrapped you with this snake and I gave this shapa. And Shamika Rishi, with his yogic power, immediately saw that it was none other than Parikshita. And he also understood that he was hungry, he was famished, he had lost his way. I said, Beta, what kind of shapa have you given? To who you have given this? Because after all, a dead snake. You have given shapa to that Parikshita himself, because of who that Kali has stayed only zipped to certain 5 places. We are able to do our tapas, we are able to do our sadhana, we are able to propagate this Gurukula because of his blessings. And now you have given shapa to that king. Very rarely comes a kula that takes the support and gives the refuge to such sattvic environment. And one such great was this Parikshita, and you have given shapa to that Parikshita. Now that you have given that shapa, knowing you, knowing your tapas, I know it is irrevocable. It cannot be taken back. The least that you can do is go inform Parikshita. Now on the other hand, how was Parikshita? Having come back to his palace, having eaten, after having done his bhojan, he suddenly remembered, midway through his bhojan, he could not consume any more food. Why? He remembered the drastic action that he had done. Look at the standards of value, morals of those times. He washed his hand, went sat in some silence. He said, it is not like you are not guilty until proven. You are innocent. He immediately knew he did something wrong, a grave mistake. And for that mistake that I have committed, what is the kind of punishment that this Vidhata has now etched in my prarabdha? He started thinking about that. Meanwhile, Shringi comes in, delivers this message that 7th day from now, hey Parikshita, you will be struck by Takshaka himself. 7th day from now, you will be dead and gone. As soon as he heard it, he said, miserable are those who, when they do wrong, think that they are not caught because they don't see the punishment. I am at least glad that my punishment is here and now, and I am going to face it. He called up Janamejaya and all his other sons, gave that kingdom to Janamejaya, did the Rajyabhisheka instantly. Took permission of his wife and said, now that my death is certain, that it cannot happen before these 7 days. See, if it was you and me, where certainty of death is decided, we would have gone through so many different methods to avoid it, to find the pratyamnaya alternatives. If not pratyamnaya, at least as soon as that takshaka bites me, let me find the potent medicine through which I can revive myself instantly, or whatever it was. He said, no, I have done wrong. That adharma that I have done is unpardonable. And if this is the punishment that I have to go through, I will face it. Now that I know that my death is certain, 7 days from now, until then I cannot die. He said, I will not waste my time in food, water and sleep. I will sit on the banks of Gangaji and spend my time in Nama Japa. And with complete vairagya, he left the palace towards what is today known as Shukatal near Muzaffarnagar. So he went to that place which is today famous as Shuktala. He went and sat down. As soon as he went and sat there, one after the other, all great sages, rishis, mahatmas started pouring into that place. Even including his own father, grandfather, Parashara, Vyasa, Vishwamitra, Vasishtha, Gautama, all these Rishi Muni Gana, they all assembled around him. Looking at them, Parikshita said, "Why are you all blessing me strangely? I am Adhama. I have done a Papa Kritya. I am going to die 7 days from now. I have taken this Prayopavesha, Amarana, Nirahara, Diksha. Why are you being so compassionate to me?" So they all said in unison that for all the good until then that you have done, as a blessings, we are all with you. Until that Takshaka decides your fate, we will make sure that you be soaked in the highest sadhana, that by the time that Takshaka comes to relieve you from this body, you yourself are already released from this Bhavasagara itself. As they just made that declaration, as though by the force of Bhagavan, unexpectedly in their midst came Shukacharya, a young Avadhuta. See, the seeker has to be ready. Therefore, Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha. All that we have to do is sit in front of the altar and pray. Make that seekerhood in me alive. Protect that feeble seekerhood in me. Protect me from myself, O Rudra. As and when I mature to be that seeker, Guru will find me. When Shukadev ji entered into that place, by then it had become like a mela. Why? There were only Parikshits sitting there. He forbid his own family to follow him. His own kingdom, his own sevaks to follow him. He said, no. This is, though it is Kali Yuga started, it is not the Kali Yuga Chardham Yatra where all fancy, comfort comes along. This is a tapascharya. I have done something wrong. You are not there to come and comfort me for that, for which I have done wrong. So none of his family, none of his troops, none of his army, none of his people followed him. But all the Rishi Munigana reached there. So it was from where he was sitting to the Ganga, the ghat, it was filled with Rishi Muni. And amidst them walks Shukacharya ji, and all these senior Mahatmas, all these great Mahatmas, looking at that Avadhuta Shiromani Shukacharya, including his own father who taught him this knowledge, including his own grandfather Parashara, they all stood up in reverence to that young Mahatma Shukacharya walking in. As though inspired by Bhagavan, Shukacharya said, whatever these Rishi Muni Guna have promised you about uplifting you to get beyond this samsara sagara, I have come to directly deliver you that Bhagavat Dharma. The rest is history, what happened to Parikshita, how the story went. But the most important thing, are we ready to be that Parikshita? Parikshita means the one who constantly experimented with the world around to find who is that Bhagavan that protected me when I was in the womb? Come to look of it, did you have to go to earn your wages, earn your food when you were in mother's womb? He had already provided for it, right? Direct link. Come to look of it, anybody dying from this world and moving on has to die in one of these 7 days. Situation is perfect. Matching. Same to same. But are we ready to be that Parikshita? Parikshita immediately stood up, prostrated to this great Mahatma that was standing in front of him, gave him the Uchitasana that he was sitting in, did the entire Shodashopachara to that Sakshat Guru Parampara, that Sakshat Guru that was sitting in front of him, with whatever are the things that were available at that point with Parikshita. Then he sat down in front of that Shukacharya and said, I have 7 days to go. I am certain to die. What should be the dharma of the one that is certain to die? What is the purpose of this life? And Shukacharya in his first opening remarks says, the dharma, artha, kama happen because it has already been triggered by your earlier life's actions. Moksha is the only purpose for which we get to be born as a human being. And for you to attain that, I will give you the highest wisdom called Bhagavat Dharma. The rest of the dharma that is enumerated, it is given to Kshatriya, the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. It is given to Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasi. It is given to various kinds of classifications. But Bhagavat Dharma is for anybody from any classification, from any background, so that they can uplift themselves immediately here and now. Such Bhagavat Dharma, Parikshita, I am going to expound upon. Listen to it carefully. Thus comes the first skanda with the 19 chapters to an end. The first skanda is primarily talking about the adhikara of who should be the Shrota of this Bhagavat Dharma. Those who have lived a life of dharmic endeavor have come to a point that they have seen that this following of interaction with the world outside can only yield so much, cannot give paramatripti. Therefore, they turned their attention, having seen the outside world, coming to a conclusion themselves that enough is enough. Therefore, turn towards Bhagavan. That is Shaunakadi Rishis and Suta Mahashaya. Who is the second pair? Narada Mahamuni and Bhagavan Vedavyasaji himself. That Vedavyasaji who was himself Unmukta. That Vedavyasa Bhagavan who is an Avatara Purusha, who, because of whom we have all these scriptures lined up in a written format for us to be benefited. Having done all the accomplishments, still being genuine to himself, he said, Atma Sakshatkara also is done, but Tripti is not there. You get the point? Moksha already, Atma Sakshatkara Anubhava, but no Tripti. What is it that can bring that Tripti even for such great seekers? Is reveling in the glory of Bhagavan and his Leela. Third one is of those who are caught up in the Kala Sarpa. Those who understand Jyotishya, we are often said, Kala Sarpa Dosh. Everybody is struck with that Kala Sarpa Dosha. If you have a DOB, you will have a DOD. You go to a mall, you pick any vastu, it will have a MFG, it will have an EXP. Similarly, we are born, we have a DOB, date of birth. Whether we know it or not, whether we appreciate it or not, there is a certainty of DOD, date of demise. Between this and that, how we live our life meticulously so that we can tune ourselves to turn to Bhagavan. That when Mrityu Devata comes, I am not scared of him. I can say, I am done. Chalo, you are late. Let's go. There is this old song, Hindi mein hai. If Lord Yama comes and says, Chalo dildar chalo, chand ke paar chalo, are we ready to say, Hum bhi taiyar chalo? That is how life had to be lived. That I am ready. I am not scared. That very purpose for which this human birth has been given has been accomplished. Reveling in it. The body, it is material, take it. So in Vedanta Shastra, we talk about art of living. In Bhagavad Shastra, it teaches us to be prepared for the certain uncertainty called death. Art of dying. Are we ready? Without anxiety, without fear, without pressure, to say, Bhagavan, I am ready to come to you. Because I am done, completed, accomplished, santrupta. To such a parikshita, from the second skanda onwards, the Bhagavat Dharma is given, enumerated, which includes the great glories of all avatars of Bhagavan. So we'll conclude here that the first skanda has come to an end. The next time we meet is not in December but in January, because many of you have come and said that this part of December doesn't work, that part of December doesn't work, then there is a new year, then there is party sharty. Remember where Kali lives, okay? He's telling you. So I agree, you will be busy, and I am not keen in coming here and addressing the chairs. So we will have it in January. If I can request, instead of here, somewhere else. The audio is very resounding, so it is the Kshetra Mahima. It is not the fan, it is not the traffic sound also. If we could have a peaceful place, I would appreciate it. We will conclude. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ। There is some prasada. Please come and take. And as we started the tradition last time, that the envelopes are here. If you can offer, if you can think of offering any Guru Dakshina, please bring it along. Can one of you help distributing these envelopes?